Welcome to Wise Beyond Bitcoin, where you cover the crypto neo news, education, and opportunities. My name is Lucas.
And my name is Ryan.
I'm Jacob.
And
Kat.
We have a special guest, Kat, with us. We're really excited. So, it's all about education, and we're looking for value in blockchain. There's a lot of forks and there's a lot of pumps and projects that don't have anything with utility behind them. But there are also people who recognize the value of decentralized ledgers and security and see a use case, a real world use case scenario. And Kat is working in one of those people who have been building a protocol that has talk about real world use case. We're talking about worldwide, huge needed value. So I'm really excited. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us about what this is that you're working on. And I guess let's kind of get right into it and tell the good people the good work that you guys are doing.
Awesome. Yeah. So I'm Kat. I am the founder of Tamarin, and we're building the Nectar protocol. So Nectar is really focused on being the Web3 infrastructure that's safe for healthcare. So a lot of what we've learned in blockchain tech and know about blockchain tech is that it's open, accessible, transparent, and public, which is great. That is a wonderful thing about blockchain technology. But that doesn't work so well with healthcare. We can still take advantage of public consensus of a blockchain while keeping healthcare data private, and that is really what we're focused on. The other aspect of Nectar that's super important is that if you want to actually capture this $7 trillion industry, you have to be HIPAA compliant. HIPAA is one of the many data privacy regulations out there. I know we'll touch on others, so we're starting with HIPAA compliance because it covers the most people globally in healthcare, from providers to patients, and not just in the United States. So that's what we're working on.
Well, we talk about privacy all the time, and it's really cool that you mentioned that, because that's one of the things that we all actually really harp on for different reasons, not just for practical applications in the world like that, but even for a money standard. We find that in history, money, whether it's been gold or fiat, has always had an element of privacy that a public ledger alone doesn't capture. So that you guys are building on ZK rollups, which I know we've talked about, and Jacob has gone into detail on this. It's not just scalable, but it's privacy. So you've got scalability and privacy, which is what's needed, because these public ledgers, you look at gas fees on Ethereum, and the reality is that there aren't layer ones at the moment that are scalable. So if you want to build something that can actually be used today, not 5 years from now, 10 years from now on scale, if you want to build something that can be used today and maintain privacy, you've done it. You're doing it. I mean, you're using the technology that's here, and you're saying, let's do this.
Yep, that's right.
And you're flexible. Like you said, it's not just HIPAA compliance, but there are other, depending upon jurisdictions and where you're at, because this is a worldwide decentralized technology that you're actually able to build an application specific to whatever that compliance is in that area.
Yep, that's right.
I'm just curious out of the bat, just to be clear, is this Ethereum, the blockchain?
Yeah, so it's an L2 on top of Ethereum, just because we're altering ZK Sync, but it's EVM compatible first, but you can actually bridge to any L1 as an L2.
Very cool.
That's very cool. Very cool. I actually have a follow-up question about that too. With layer 2s becoming more popular, I'm super interested to know if there's ever any plans to also have layer 2 on maybe a different blockchain, maybe for other reasons.
Yep. Yeah. So a little bit about our history. So the company was founded in 2017. I was a former hospital administrator at Yale New Haven. My rabbit hole for blockchain was in 2016, and I said, this tech is going to transform everything, and healthcare needs to play a part. So let's build that for healthcare. And we started as an L1. We were a fork of Ethereum, public-private proof of authority nodes, and actually switched this summer. The reason we switched is because of that very reason, which is it started to become pretty clear that it's not great to bet on one specific L1 if you don't have to. So that's also why we like that L2 roll up specifically. You can bridge to any L2. So we're doing EVM compatibility first, just because that's where still this may change, that's where all the devs are, a big majority of devs who've been in this space for a while. But let's say that another L1 starts to really pick up steam, or something happens with Ethereum, or Ethereum 2 doesn't really come about. We can bridge to anything after EVM. We don't, in full transparency, we don't have a plan yet of what that is. We don't really want to plan because we don't know what's going to happen. We've been around since in the 17, 18 years, or 2017, 2018, the ICO craze. So we've seen a lot of very popular protocols that nobody talks about anymore. So we don't want to bet on a protocol that is not going to be around in a couple of years. So short answer, yes. And we're not sure which one yet, but we have that capability.
I think it's awesome to have that open flexibility. And that's one of the things that I love about layer twos, is that they're never tied down to a particular blockchain.
Yep.
I bring this up, the market, just to show people, if you're new to crypto or blockchain, Ethereum is the largest smart contract protocol. It's got the largest market cap. It's where the development and the value is when it comes to smart contract platforms in blockchain. So to be built there is to have the most decentralized security that you can have for a layer one at the moment. And that EVM compatibility is huge. I would venture to say, if y'all haven't looked at, I would look at Pulse Chain, which is launching very soon. And it's the founder is Richard Hart. He's behind Hex, which has been one of the most successful creations off of Ethereum. And he does a lot with medical research. And funding programs like that. And they stand to be one of the most efficient, if not the most efficient, EVMs coming out in the next few weeks. So definitely write that down, and that would be something you might want to look at. This is really exciting what you guys are doing. So because you're an L2, that flexibility, I mean, that's redundancy that allows you to take what you've built and not be stuck to the original layer one that you were built on, and to be able to move to others, especially when you're talking about something as important as medical records. To get back to it, if you're listening to this, Kat saw from her background in the medical field a specific need for blockchain technology. And, it's really a pleasure to have you on. I will say, for many reasons, because Ryan and I have a similar background, although not in medical field. We kind of, knowing about blockchain early on, didn't dive into it until around the 2016, 2017 ICO craze, where we took our economic background, which was where we met. And that's when we really saw the potential. We saw, oh, wait a minute, regardless of what the prices are on the market in the short run and regulation, how it's going to be accepted, but we saw that this new decentralized ledger security storage, instead of the old, people having the bank account hacked or the Experian hacked or the whatever, that this is going to have use cases in the economy in ways that we can never imagine. So having you here is having one of those people who imagined it. Like, we're like, wow, this is going to affect the economy in so many different markets. And you're someone who's like, I'm in one of those markets. I recognized it and I built something. So this is because this is what it's about. It's about building something that in the future, people have had their medical records, their medical data compromised, or have had to have people access their medical records that happen to be in the business of securing it, and their data got leaked. Well, now you don't have gatekeepers. Now you don't have other people securing it. It's decentralized.
Right.
It's more secure than it's ever been. So, people in the future using a technology like this won't even understand the limitations and the problems that people in the past have had for generations.
Yep.
And I just want to say, speaking from personal experience too, I have a history with cancer, so I'm on more of the patient side. But I've had an issue before where my first surgery, when they first tried to, I don't know if you could see it, but I had a thyroid cancer.
Oh, wow.
And they had to take out 126 lymph nodes in my entire thyroid.
Oh my gosh.
The
Wow.
first surgery, they, for whatever reason, they couldn't find my medical records at that hospital. And the surgeon was like, no, we've already scheduled this. I've already looked over this, and that. And the insurance company was saying that they wouldn't cover it because they just couldn't find my information. And I will never forget this because this was so awesome. I've never seen a doctor get so mad, cussing out an insurance company, going from professional to heated argument. Like, I'm doing this and I'm gonna do it for free if you don't fix it.
Yep.
It blew my mind. And since then, it's just been something where I just have a new appreciation for the people who work in the medical field and who are building this technology to just make it so much easier for people to receive good quality healthcare.
Yeah, and I'm really glad you mentioned an upset physician at the insurance company. So working at Yale New Haven, if you actually, like, when you interact with physicians, they're very different from hospital administrators, which I was one, very different from folks that work at insurance companies. Some physicians work there, but people talk about Web3 ethos as being user owned, and what Nectar, yes, is focused on infrastructure for healthcare, and data is the big play there. But what we're thinking about from the Web3 ethos perspective is that the patients and clinicians are users, and getting healthcare back into the patients and clinicians' hands is the goal. Away from big pharma, away from insurance companies, away from this. I mean, I love capitalism, but like it's just not. It's become too greedy, and healthcare is not about the patient anymore. And it's certainly not about the physicians either. So if you put an infrastructure in place where you can put in new economic models where patients and clinicians are working together and aligned to work together, you can create so many cool things. So to do that, first, we have to have that data. We have to have that data layer, which is why everyone goes first to that electronic medical records. That's why we're doing HIPAA compliant, decentralized data storage. And then on top of that, you can just start thinking of all of the cool models where you can just really rethink healthcare. And if you think, we like to think of it as like DAOs on DAOs, like just kind of like this bubble ecosystem. It's not going to be one DAO that fixes everything or one organization that fixes everything. They'll all kind of intersect, and then they'll sit on top of this super private but fast, scalable, HIPAA compliant infrastructure, so that we can get to that state where a physician shouldn't have to worry about whether or not they're going to get paid because someone can't find your data, which is so awful.
Yeah, it was, honestly though, it was a cool experience to see that. It was kind of surreal.
Yeah, doctors are, a lot of doctors go into medicine. They joke about this in medical school interviews, but it's because they want to help people. You can help people a lot of ways. You can help people with this podcast, Wise Beyond Bitcoin. But they really, most physicians are not in it for economic gain. A lot of physicians will have that same reaction. I don't care if you pay me, or your insurance is stupid. This is a ridiculous process. They're just as fed up with the system as patients are. And so everyone's looking for a change. So,
and I love how you talked about the incentives having an impact, because it really is, it's all about changing the incentives and where people are getting their funding.
Yep.
How people are getting their funding makes a difference. I can imagine that a lot of the doctors that go into medicine, if a lot of the degrees weren't funded by big pharma and other agencies, then maybe the tools that they come out with and the methods in which they treat people and look at people might even be different and give them more opportunities. So we're really just seeing the beginning of people being able to create infrastructures with blockchain that change the incentives to make the world a better place.
Yeah, and the incentive change that we really are focusing on, even from a data perspective, is away from fee for service into value-based care. And what that basically means is healthcare right now globally. I don't care if you're in Canada and you think it's a single payer system. It is not. Globally, healthcare is fee for service. There's a government insurance and there's a private industry underneath it or above it. But everyone in healthcare gets paid based on the number of procedures they provide, or pharmaceutical companies get paid based on the number of pills they sell, and device companies based on the number of devices they sell. Right. So how can we over time shift that towards a value-based outcome, meaning your medical device gets paid more because the outcomes for that patient were phenomenal. Mm-hmm. Your physician gets paid more because your cancers, you haven't had to, there was no remission. Things like that, where it's not so much based on like widgets, but it's actually based on like, are you taking care of the patient? Like, is this well care, not sick care? So that's also why, but we can't do that until that new infrastructure exists. Your econ background, we need technology to be able to realign those incentives, then realign them, then build the new orgs.
Yeah, the way I see it is trying to have the value tied to outcome rather than moving units of whatever it is, right? Exactly. And how to change the rules of the game such that that's incentivized. Yep. It's a good question. A lot of it, going back to what we've studied in economics, is tied to, the ability of these large entities to keep out or define the rules of the game. Like the AMA was an example. They were created to limit the supply and limit kind of like a guild, right? To limit who can actually offer services under the title of a doctor, right? Or medical services, and then controlling what kind of curriculums and things are taught in medical schools. So I guess one of the things I would think about is how do we, politically, that's going to be hard to change, right? Because of the way the nature of politics, you're going against these deep moneyed institutions. But I think doing this technological route, innovating a new set of incentives inside the old system, changing the game that way through entrepreneurship, that's really the ticket.
Exactly. And AMA for folks is American Medical Association. So that's who regulates medical school and doctor licenses, which is silly, by the way. Like, we don't need state licensures. Like, someone who is getting thyroid cancer treatment in Massachusetts is no different than Texas. We're not like lawyers barred by state makes sense because laws are very different, but your care as a patient in Massachusetts does not change from the care that you should and need to receive in Texas. So anyway, that's another thing. That's a good point. But yeah, you're right. What are those new incentive structures? And it is going against, and typically, especially with some investor calls, they're like, well, how are you, healthcare is really difficult. How are you going to fix it? And we're like, well, so is traditional finance. Traditional finance is just as complicated, just as regulated and crazy as healthcare is. And the way DeFi took off is through the consumer. And healthcare will be no different. There's already a trend moving towards direct-to-consumer health anyway. We warned our senior physicians at Yale about it. They scuffed us off and said, you don't know what you're talking about, but you're going to get there direct-to-consumer. And the change will take a long time, just like you said, Ryan, but we'll get there eventually. But we believe it really does have to come from the consumer and really focusing on the consumers and clinicians.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Speaking on that economic standpoint, I'm super interested because I read through a little bit of your roadmap and I read through a little bit about Nectar itself, and I see that you guys actually have a token, and I'm interested in how the economics of the token really plays into your ethos.
Yeah, so the token is utility in nature and can drive incentives, but you can also create other tokens on top of that, just like you can other L2s, or bring in the L1 token. But the idea behind that is using the token for the transactions, of course. But one of the things that I love about Web3 and blockchain is that it's kind of the first time that we've been able to pay for the development of open source tech or running things that are public goods. The folks that created the internet, imagine if they had Web3 tech now, it would probably be a lot more expensive, or it'd be a lot different. I don't think it would be as expensive, but what I'm saying is that they actually would have been, you can get paid for public goods now, if that makes sense. So for Nectar, we'll have nodes that run the network. They have to be HIPAA compliant. They'll go through an authorization and an auditing process. And every part here is incentivized. So I'll just run through kind of what the Nectar infrastructure looks like at a high level. So it's a zero knowledge rollup. To run that, you do have to have nodes. The nodes are called data service providers, and they'll have different roles. They'll store data or they'll transact the data, getting to consensus on the L1. But then we'll also have nodes that hold data in a HIPAA compliant way. In order to identify HIPAA compliance, we want this to be fully decentralized. We don't want to be the gatekeeper. So we've designed a way to decentralize that HIPAA compliance with what's called an auditor and an authorizer. So if you, Jacob, want to be a HIPAA compliant node, you ping the system and that you'll get connected with an auditor. And the auditor will say, all right, so this is what's required from a HIPAA compliance standpoint, on-chain, off-chain policies. So like, things that you do with your computer, but then also like, don't leave your computer out at a coffee shop for it to get stolen, because that can, you got to be smart about these things. So it does require a little bit higher level of commitment, but you'll get paid more for that. So then the auditor says, that's the checklist. You say, great, you implement the checklist, you go back to the auditor. The auditor actually does a test attack of your system. We're a HIPAA compliant entity. We go through this every quarter. They do a simulated DDoS attack. They check the security of our files, make sure that nothing can get through or can leak. We would do the same thing as the auditor. Any auditors would do this. You get a check and you say, good, you're good to go. But then you would pass to the authorizer, because there's a lot of collusion and fraud that could happen if it was just a one check system. So it's a two check system. Then the authorizer will go through and double check the system and say, yep, this is correct. DDoS was fine. Nothing can leak. You're all good to go. Then you would get cleared as a HIPAA compliant node. To further disincentivize fraud, we actually put all three of you into a risk-based model. And what that means is that the auditor and authorizer actually share in the revenue that you get as a node, small percentage, but they also have to pay a penalty if there's a HIPAA breach. So the HIPAA breach doesn't just sit on you, it sits on the auditor and authorizer. So that means it disincentivizes them from bringing in someone that could screw up the system, and it kind of keeps everyone all aligned. Blockchain is great. You put that through a smart contract, it's all automatic. So
that's beautiful. And what you just described, it's like you're creating this new incentive structure, rewarding people for doing things right. It's creating a meritocracy, and how we get there. And Ryan and I talk about this all the time in theory, and the problems wrong in markets, in the economy, is that when you allow people, humans, to act and allow the cost of their actions to be put on other people, then you're always going to lead to results that are not harmonious to everybody. But when we have to pay for our own mistakes, then all of a sudden we're a little bit more careful, right? And when you look at subsidies or bailouts or barriers to entry for the AMA, many of these things, or class action lawsuits, we have so many institutions that are designed that some men and women can make decisions, and everybody else has to pay the cost for it when they're wrong or make a mistake, So by you building a system where these different checkpoints, where everyone involved, sure, they can be rewarded, but they also pay the price if something isn't done right. That's how people fix these things in real life and change the incentives so that we do have that meritocracy, so that we do fix those problems. So this is really cool. I'm very excited. Thank you for taking the time to share us about what you're building. I had no idea, as I was talking shortly before we started this, I was going to learn a lot about what you're doing as we started talking. And the more I learned, the more excited I am. So let's say, because this is like, we talk about secret network. That's another protocol in blockchain that is building. It's a layer one with privacy on the layer one. And they're in a pretty IBC, a pretty large network when it comes to blockchain. However, at the moment, when it comes to scalability and what you guys are doing, that because you can move to other layer ones, it's something that in the future might be a value to look at. But it's real world applications. And this is something that's a real world application. And that's where Ryan and I talk about, and Jacob, we look for opportunities in blockchain, not trading advice. Nothing we talk about is financial advice or trading advice or legal, commercial, marital, medical advice. It's all just education, entertainment, research, information, by the way. But we look for long-term value and technologies that are looking to displace, replace, create, new incentive structures for the long term to add value. This, Kat, what you have seen, what you've created, very cool. Congratulations. I'm so cool to be talking to you, by the way. One of the early innovators. You're one of the early innovators who are building something on blockchain, using blockchain from your background experience in seeing problems with data storage in the medical system. This is just so cool. How can people support you right now? Well, let's say, because for many people that are looking, they're hungry to invest in blockchain, but there are so many forks of like 100 different, dexes that are all doing the same thing and are all getting hit with front running problems and nothing's being, you're building something that's unique, innovative. There's really not much competition when it comes to what you have right now. So how can people support you?
Yeah, so there are 3 ways that they can support. It's kind of separated by US and non-US. So in the US, Gitcoin grants are coming up. So that starts March 9th, grant rounds 13. But second is we have the protocol Nectar, but we're launching an app to market as well called Shyro, where you can connect and earn for your health data. This is actually building that data web layer we were talking about. And we're launching our NFT on Tuesday, 2/22/22.
Cool. Where?
We're launching it on OpenSea. So we're actually starting first with a competition for an early access list. And then that competition for the US folks also gets you entered in for one of 4 free Shyros. And the grand prize is 1 Shyro, which is the rarest. Like, it's not even on OpenSea yet. So we're super excited. With that NFT, you actually get what's called an elite membership, which is a higher % of profit sharing in Shyro forever. And then waived membership through 2024.
Is there a website for this right now?
Yeah, Shyro.health. SHYRO. I couldn't use the I. I had to change it. And then /NFT, and that's actually our NFT page.
Cool.
But this will give you the so these are our little Shyros. Cool. Yeah, so fun fact, I drew the Shyro. We actually tried to go an artist route, and then they tried to steal our art. There's a long story behind that. So I was like, screw it. So I drew the little Shyro, and then David, our blockchain dev, we both drew the accessories and he put all the colors behind it. So like, it's our art, like we designed it in-house.
Okay.
That's cool.
I love mushrooms. I mean, I really love mushrooms. And when it comes to use for medical, whether it's amanita, psilocybin, I've been working with mushrooms for a lot. I'm part mushroom. You are what you eat. I'm a walking, talking mushroom.
That's awesome. So
that's attracted to this. I love that you're working in the medical field and because the reality is that these are actually one of the most hidden, unknown medicines out there for being able to help people in so many ways. So that this is the artwork behind this new technologies.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. I love artwork, Kat. Cool artwork.
Thank you. And then the idea for Shyro is, Shyro, as you know, probably is just another word for mycelium. And mycelium is the web underground of that really connects all the mushrooms. Without that, the forest wouldn't exist, and ultimately we wouldn't exist. So when we talk about a data web, that's what we're talking about. Shyro is that data web that then all of this ecosystem of new healthcare value creation, all that jazz will sit on top of. So that's the idea.
You look at the nervous system in the body, or you look at lightning, you look at the structure of mycelium, the way it sends information when we feel something from a pinprick on our toe and that message comes up, in that response. They found that mycelium communicates through those networks.
Yes. Yeah.
right?
Yep. So that's how folks can participate. So you can go the grants route. I think most people will probably be interested in the NFT because the profit sharing is super cool. So we'll be the only data, specifically health data company that actually profit shares with people. Gosh, imagine if Amazon, Facebook, and Google actually shared their profits from our data. That would be
Well,
man.
they wouldn't be the Amazons and Googles of today, right?
right.
That's how they got there, was by selling people's information and
Yeah, exactly.
But the future is this is the future. And this is well, it's happening right now. You're making it happen right now. I'm looking forward to participating. How much do one of these NFTs cost?
So we're really playing on the 222 method. So it's going to be the ETH equivalent of 222 on launch on Tuesday, 222.
Okay.
But then obviously we all know NFTs fluctuate. So that's what we're putting it out there as, and then whatever happens, happens. So
when you say 222, 2 ETH 0.22?
Oh, good. Sorry. $222.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was just
that would be crazy.
Talk about a barrier to entry. You have to be,
oh my gosh, right?
You'd have to be a doctor with your student loans paid off before you get
I have to be sure, because in this space, you never know if someone's talking about like this money system, Ethereum, whatever it may be.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. So $222 ETH equivalent at time of launch, and that gets you profit sharing forever, higher percent. You will always have that elite level. And then waived membership, which is like $400. So should pay for itself within the first 2 years.
And if you just want to support people that are building beautiful things in blockchain and have a NFT to show for it that might even earn a percentage of profit sharing, you can also, there are many reasons to support something. I mean, this is really cool. I'm excited for you. I'm excited for this project, and I look forward to following up with you as this goes on. If there's anything we can do to continue sharing what you guys are doing and keeping people abreast of the latest developments, especially maybe after post NFT launch, and see how things go after that.
Awesome. Sounds great.
Is there anything? Oh, go ahead, brother.
I just do want to mention how criminal it is that they only have 700 followers on Twitter. Please go down there and follow them on Twitter, because what they're building is amazing. And I personally look at some of the other protocols and look at what they're building, and it's insane to me to see these teams that are doing these awesome things like Jackal DAO with decentralized privacy storage, with Nectar protocol being HIPAA compliant and having profit sharing NFTs. These are the things that really are going to change this space. And I think that it's criminal to not know about it.
Thank you.
Good thing mentioning that. That's another team that we don't work with, but we research and have spoken with. Jackal DAO is an organization that in the future, you see what they're doing with privacy, layer 1, decentralized data storage. There may be opportunities for collaboration and working on things in the future. You know, these things work.
Yep.
But I just want to thank you again. And I'm a people person. I just love people in general. It doesn't really matter. We're all, God's children spread around the world, right? But you are a woman who has built something, and that means a lot to a lot of people. So I'm also gonna just sell it, Kat, hope you don't mind.
That's fine.
This is a woman who's pioneering a blockchain, because you know what, you have done something really great here. And I just want to thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm totally fine with that. I'll play that card all day.
You are a woman, so I'm gonna let people know. Hey, there's a woman who's done something really cool. Thank you very much. I do look forward to following up. Do you guys have anything else to share? Do you have anything else?
With the NFT launch, that's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Super excited.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to see an NFT project that has, something more than just the hype and the greater fool's theory behind it, but there's actually an intrinsic, stream of value here. That's awesome. Thank you for coming on and telling us and educating us about what you guys are doing. We'll definitely keep following it. And thanks again.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Well, until the next time, have a beautiful day, and namaste, y'all.